meltdown, sir. It can't be stopped.
Surrender may be our only option.
No. Never give up. Never surrender.
You order, sir? Sir, who orders?
Activate the Omega-13.
This is Comic Geek Speak, episode 1771, Retro Movie Review, Galaxy Quest.
Laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek, uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is...
I'm Ian Levinstein.
I'm Shane Kelly.
I'm Matt.
I'm Adam Murdo.
I'm Chris Everett.
Ah, how sweet it is.
Ian, I knew you were going to have a sample, and you didn't let us down, brother.
Yep, I figured there was no other appropriate sample but that one.
Yes. Well done.
Lovingly selected and curated.
I either thought that one or whatever, like Grabthar's hammer, that whole line.
Or, you can save us.
You are an asshole.
Oh, this is going to be a fun episode.
Damn right it is. And happy to have Matt to join us for this one.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be here. As far as long as I can.
Hell yeah. So this one is good timing as we are approaching the 20th anniversary. Actually, we just had the 20th anniversary. Now that I think about it.
1999.
Yep, 1999 of Galaxy Quest. And now we're in year 21, so it's old enough to drink. And also,
I think in those terms, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there was also the documentary that was released not too long ago, all about the making of the movie, which I literally finished about 3 minutes before we got on this call. So
I finished. I watched it over the weekend.
I watched it over the weekend as well.
Excellent. Yep. And we have at least one Galaxy Quest newbie on this call as well. So looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions on this wonderful, wonderful piece of nostalgia. And Murd, I think I'm going to start it off with you, just because I'm extra curious. You watched this one on DVD or VHS?
VHS, actually.
Excellent.
Wow.
Yes. And I hope I'm not the newbie to which you were referring, Ian, because I watched this for the first time back in 2016.
Ah, okay. I wasn't quite sure if you'd seen it once already or if this was number 2. Okay.
Exactly once, and this was number 2.
Excellent.
Yes, I have to give special thanks, of course, to Julie Benson of the Sisters Benson out there in L.A., because it was she who provided me with the VHS tape that I watched in 2016 and now again in 2020.
Nice.
Because Julie, she and her sister Sean are both big science fiction fans, and Julie loves this movie. I know it is near and dear to her heart, and she made sure that both I and Pants, who neither of us had seen it before, we both got a chance to watch it. And she sent it to me in my preferred format and medium, and I'm grateful to her for that. In fact, I would dedicate my review of the movie to her. It's just that it's kind of a lukewarm, neutral, altogether unimpressed review. So I don't want to do that to one of her favorite films and then dedicate it to her. I don't want to make it seem like I didn't like Galaxy Quest. I liked it well enough. It's entertaining enough. It's kind of a nice little middle-of-the-road fantasy adventure thing. It's a movie that I think doesn't quite live up to the full promise of the premise, if you see what I'm saying. I love the idea, like a bunch of washed-up has-been actors on an old sci-fi TV show get a chance to live the scenarios and the characters that they used to portray back in the early 80s. It could have been a lot better than it was. It's a great basic idea. I think they needed to do more to develop the characters, for one thing, and they really needed to go all in on deconstructing the conventions of of like old sci-fi TV shows like Buck Rogers or Star Trek or what have you, and Battlestar Galactica, and the tropes that emerged there, and also engaging with the idiosyncrasies, shall we say, of fan culture and conventions and whatnot. There's some of that in there. I think it needed more for it to really be as funny and to fulfill its promise. As it is, it tends to spend too much of its airtime just driving along what little bit of a plot it has, and it's kind of tepid. The script is there's some funny bits, there's some things that are good for a giggle. My favorite part, the one thing that I remembered clearly from my first viewing and that I carried through to this second viewing was when Sigourney Weaver's character cries aloud in anguish to the science fiction gods to decry the terrible writing that led to there being metal pounding things and a giant belching fire pit in the bowels of the which served no practical purpose. That episode was badly written. See, that's the kind of meta comedy that I wanted here, and this did not deliver enough of it to really entertain me. For the record, Pants, I don't think was particularly. He was a bit underwhelmed by this too. Julie asked him what he thought of the movie, and she asked him if he'd watched it. He said, "I watched it." She asked him what he thought of it, and he said, "I watched it."
Oh, so Pants.
So not to put any further words into Brian's mouth than that, but I don't think he was all that impressed either. But so I'm kind of middle of the road on this movie. Entertaining enough. I've seen it twice now. I don't regret having watched it either time, but it's going to need to be at least 5 years now, I think, before I feel like watching it again.
Fair enough, sir.
God, I think I watch it 5-6 times in a year easily.
Jeez.
Not that often for me, but I watched it, I think maybe about 2 years ago when it was streaming on Amazon Prime for quite some time. And I actually just went and bought a disc to digital copy using the easy hack online, which is basically there's a service called Voodoo. If you use disc to digital and you look up the UPC for a DVD or a Blu-ray in your own home on your computer, you can then use your phone to scan that, and it thinks you're scanning an actual DVD or Blu-ray, and you wind up getting like a $2 digital code that you can then use to redeem something and watch over and over again if you really want to.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't work for every movie, but it did work for Galaxy Quest. Unfortunately, it's not one of those movies anywhere things where you can watch it on Amazon or anything like that, because Paramount doesn't do movies anywhere. So at least I have it on Voodoo forever now. So there's that. Yeah. But Matt, let me get your thoughts on the film.
I was never describe myself as a big Trekkie. Like some of the movies, I could watch it. I've never watched any of the TV shows, and although I'm looking to watch Picard soon. But I remember watching this and thinking, this is freaking funny. Whenever it comes to Sigourney Weaver, there's some revisionist history with strong female characters. She is one of my go-to. If I was thinking of a badass female character, it's her from Aliens, without a doubt.
Oh yeah,
this was the first time I've ever seen her that I was like, oh my god, she's attractive. Other times I didn't. She's not ugly, but I didn't think that her appeal had nothing to do with her appearance. It's just the writing and everything else. And I thought, this is a cool character. This is the first time I thought obviously it's with her character, but there was a sex appeal to her. Like the last time I watched this was maybe 6 months to a year ago, and I had to chuckle when they were doing the closing credits of the Revival series, where Tony Shalhoub's character, who's supposed to be Asian, squinted his eyes, and I thought there is no way that would get passed now.
No.
Without a doubt, that would be gone. But I liked it. I thought it was even better when I was watching something where I think Patrick Stewart said he heard about it. He thought it was an insult. And Jonathan Frank said, you have to watch this. And Patrick Stewart sat down and watched it, and he thought it was a great movie. And I think William Shatner even complimented on it, but he was trying to figure out who the Tim Allen character was supposed to be based upon. Kind of a tongue-in-cheek, I know what you did there type of thing. I enjoyed it. I liked the idea that somebody saw a TV series and based a culture. I mean, I'm assuming every one of us at some point thought TV was reality.
Oh yeah,
I mean, not for like years when we're an adult, but at some point. So the fact that another race would be would be picking up these signals and just assume these are actual chronicles of what's going on, and then basing their technology and way of life around TV series. And those poor people on Gilligan's Island was just great. So, and I Tim Allen, I think is funny. So he was good in this, and Alan Rickman. Usually, I think of him with this or with Die Hard, which are completely contrasting characters. But I equally like him in this movie as well. Just the stuff that they gave him to do. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I miss Alan Rickman so much. He's just one of the classiest men in Hollywood. I mean, you've heard so many interviews with people who've known him over the years and said he was a respectful guy, but he had this dry wit about him that just worked beautifully in both character and in real life, where sometimes you didn't quite know if he was joking, but you always knew he was. And that's what works so great about him. And he was respectful to his fellow actors as well. There was a story told in the documentary about how, one of the other actors in his film, he went to see his play on Broadway. He flew to New York, and this was after he had his stroke, just to watch him perform. And that says a lot about the guy. Yeah. Galaxy Quest, to me, so I've heard people describe it as their favorite Star Trek movie, and it's not quite that for me, but it's like number 2, because especially now, watching it, today, and I miss conventions. I miss that life right now, and I miss being able to congregate and experience it with fellow nerds and what have you. I mean, I'm glad we have this medium of podcasting to be able to do that on a weekly basis, because if not, I'd be pulling my hair out right now. But this is so respectful to the nerds, and I think that's what I appreciate the most about Galaxy Quest. That it doesn't really look down on the culture. Like, that classic, Shatner sketch from SNL back in the 70s where he's like, it was just a TV show. Get over it. You don't get any of that in this film. It's for the most part. There might be a scene or two where that might feel to be the case.
One very important scene right at the beginning.
Yeah. Point. Yeah. But for the most part, it escapes those tropes. I think that the Justin Long character is actually a very believable character to me. And I appreciate how they work him into the film, and how it's it's not exactly played for laughs, but my favorite part of the movie is basically like I just want you to know that I'm not one of those fans that thinks that this is all real. It's all real. I knew it. It just really worked for me. And
was that his first role, or one of his first roles?
No, I think he was in Ed before that, the TV show Ed with oh my God, the guy who plays Wells on Flash.
Tom Cavanaugh.
Thank you. Tom Cavanaugh.
Yep. Yeah, but it's certainly one of his first roles, and pretty much everybody in the cast praises him for the character he put together, and I would have never noticed this, without watching the document. Again, watch the documentary if you love this movie, and frankly, even if you didn't, you might just know a little bit more about the history and all that jazz. But Justin Long putting together that he got his character's voice from a combination of Michael J. Fox and Chris Farley.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because he got the Doc, we gotta go back, with the hey, you remember when in episode 3 you said to that guy hi. Yeah, that was awesome.
His perform, like, what's great about it is because of the world we all have lived in, we all know that guy.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I've sold comics to that guy so many times. or like, when I was much younger and some of my first cons I went to, and like I would go up to a creator and I would try to talk to them, and I'm nowhere near as communicative as I am now as a 47-year-old man. And I was him, right? In certain situations, to some degree, I was that guy. It's a fantastic performance, and like you said, he's such an integral part of the story because he helps save them all. Mm-hmm. And he and his and Ian, I wanted to ask you, when he's on the computer and his friends are all coming up on the camera, was that one of the first time we saw that in a movie?
I think so.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. Just in general, I feel like it was the right year. You know, it was 99. Like by then, webcams were really starting to become a thing, at least a little bit.
I think using it the way they did, as easily as they did, was a little bit into the future.
Yes,
but I agree. It was just starting to be a thing.
Yeah, I also did appreciate that his OS actually looked like a real OS, because that is, in general, one of my biggest pet peeves about movies and TV, when they turn on a computer and it does not look like anything that could possibly exist. Like either it's too technologically advanced or it looks like, DOS 3.0. Like there's no in between. Like computer and the fake computer noises that usually come out of computers, it's just it's a pet peeve. His was pretty close to reality, and I appreciated that. But just overall, the cast comes together as a unit very, very well, and it's just, I don't know, it's just pretty believable all the way around as a campy 60s or 70s TV space show that has to learn that there's actual space out there, and well, some people don't quite know the difference between reality and fiction, and that's what's so cool about this. So I really enjoy the film. It's one of my favorites. I put it out there, especially in this particular genre. Chris, what about you?
This will be one of the rare times in my life that I'll disagree with Murd. I think when we look back someday at American movies, when they look at basically perfect screenplays, which are trying to capture a certain something, this movie should be there. Mm-hmm. I've seen this movie many times, and like we've talked about, it's essentially a Star Trek film, and I love Star Trek, as many listeners know. For what they were trying to achieve, I think this movie is basically flawless. And what makes this movie so great is the writing. Because as I go through it, and I watched it again today, the studies they did of Star Trek, of the characters, of their nuances, their dynamics, their interactions, in-jokes, plot holes, every possible thing about Star Trek that could be lovingly lampooned was basically done in this film.
Yeah.
And I think the writing is brilliant in this movie for what they were trying to do. I mean, I'm not saying it's The Godfather, but for what they were trying to achieve, I think it's about as good as it gets in that category. Every time I watch this movie, I just have a huge grin on my face from ear to ear. And you guys are right. Watch the documentary, because it only adds to your appreciation and enjoyment of the film, because you appreciate how much the people making the movie knew they had lightning in a bottle. They knew what they were doing, and they realized that what they were making was special. And that makes it all the more bittersweet that the studio didn't fully realize what they had.
Yeah.
It wasn't marketed properly. And really, I think it's come into its own really because of video and so forth, really probably more than even the theater.
Yeah, it was.
I agree.
Definitely. Yeah, it didn't really have that strong of a theater run, but it also was praised by critics. So it is one of those critical darlings that just never caught on due to the way it was marketed and how it was distributed.
A lot of people say it's one of the best Star Trek movies ever made.
Yeah.
And it is in its own way. And again, every time I watch it, I notice something new that they did. And the documentary does a lot of that too, where you realize, oh wow, like things that you might have missed. But I think this film is for what it's trying to achieve is amazing.
Shane, what do you think?
I enjoyed this film the first time I saw it, and every time since. I agree with you, Ian. I wouldn't put it as one of my super ultra favorite Star Trek films, but I do think that it is very well done. And the only thing for me that would have made it better would have been if they could have gotten or would have done one of the Star Trek casts doing this movie instead. I like we said earlier, I watched the documentary over the weekend. I was fascinated by the story of how this movie was created, what their intent was, and how it ended up. how people got cast, what they went through. They talked to some of the Star Trek, the Next Generation cast members, and like was said before, they enjoyed it and thought it was very well done. And Brent Spiner at one point said, why didn't we do this? It would have been great for them to do themselves, because knowing what this movie came across as. I found it fascinating that Tim Allen is a huge sci-fi fan, and Sigourney Weaver was really pushing to get this role.
Well, what I love about her role in this film is that, and Matt has mentioned this before, when we think of Sigourney Weaver, obviously for many people you think of Alien.
Yeah.
She was an incredibly powerful and strong character in those films. And I can see why she probably embraced this role, because it's such a total departure from what people associate her with, especially when it comes to science fiction.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a great moment which I've missed every time until I watched the movie again today, where they're crawling. She goes, "Not ducks again," and obviously it's a tip of the hat to Aliens. But I mean, Sigourney Weaver's a great actress. She's done so many different types of roles. But what the kind of character she captures in this film, because she's also kind of lampooning like the silly character she's playing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like when she comes out on the stage at the beginning, she does like that pseudo kung fu kick.
Yeah.
Like that, the movie has the reason why I think the movie is so great is that it has so many little touches like that, where if you're plugged into this type of film, you know immediately why they had her do that and what they're making fun of, lovingly making fun of there.
I think there's a lot of great one-off lines and little quippy, clever things that make me laugh, knowing the Star Trek shows as well as I do. One of my favorites is when Sigourney Weaver's character, they're all sitting around like the ready room or the meeting area, and she keeps repeating what the computer's saying, and one of the other cast members makes a comment about it. She goes, "Look, I've got one job to do, and I'm going to do it. God damn it!" It just makes me smile and laugh every time I see it.
Yeah, that one in particular. I mean, it's not quite a subtle jab at the role that females used to have to play in shows like this, where that's literally the only thing that they would be doing on the ship with everybody else. It's like, okay, so what exactly are you? I'm the one that talks.
Yeah. Well, and even to take that, like you have Denise Crosby, who used to do that a lot as a security chief, going, "Hailing frequencies open, hailing frequencies closed, hailing frequencies open," or Uhura did it a little bit, but I think they gave Uhura more to do on the original Star Trek. Mm-hmm. But then you even had Michael Dorn fall into that the first couple seasons that he was security chief, where it was hailing frequencies open. I mean, it was the same thing. Yeah. It took a while to get some development into there and give them more to do.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the female character is supposed to be there for and she said TV guy interviewed me 6 pages for my breasts, and so they're kind of turning all that on its head, and by putting Sigourney Weaver like Ripley in that role, only made it all the more fantastic.
Sigourney Weaver is one of those people where if I could just sit down and just have a couple of drinks with her and have lunch, I would be so freaking happy, because she just seems like she has one of the most fun, nice personalities out of all the actresses that in Hollywood. In general, that seems to be something that she just 100% has. And there was a scene in the documentary where they were talking about how she just kept not wanting to take the blonde wig off, because she had heard that that blondes are supposed to have more fun, and she wanted to really test that out. And immediately, that is her personality to a T. I love it.
She comes across really great in those interviews in the documentary.
Yep.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. I think for what it was meant to be, for me, was just entertaining, and not trying to look down on Star Trek shows or classic 70s sci-fi shows like Adam had said, Battlestar or Buck Rogers. It gave something that we as young, when I was a kid, would think, God, what if this was real? What if there was something actually out there? And gave you a little glimpse of what that might be like for the shows we used to watch if somebody came across a planet that invoked this as their way of life. I love the little nod to when they said Gilligan's Island and those poor people. Like out of all the things, you can do anything on that island except get off it, but all those poor people.
I have to say, I found two lines that I use probably the most from this movie are like when Sophie says, "I can't do something," I'll throw out there, "Never give up, never surrender." And then there'll be some times where you remember they were on that rock planet, and Jason Nesmith would do the rolls, and Sigourney Weaver's character Tanya goes, "Is the rolling really necessary?" I think about that sometimes, about something that isn't really necessary that somebody does, and I just think, are the rollings really necessary?
Yeah.
Does the rolling help? Yeah, it helps.
And it threw me off. Not threw me off, but one of the things that I do remember about this movie is Susan, George's fiance, plays the mother.
Yep.
Adam, I'm curious what scene didn't quite rub you right with the fans.
Which scene involved the kind of dismissive attitude towards fans that you said wasn't in the movie?
Yeah.
Well, it's when Jason Nesmith says pretty much exactly what Shatner said in that sketch. Yes, when he and his fans are trying to get Nesmith to some point about the engineering of the Protector, and finally he, after overhearing those people bad mouthing him and the other actors in the men's room, he just explodes at them and says it's none of it's real. It's just a TV show, and he stalks out.
Yeah,
but it's not that it didn't. It made sense for the movie, all right. I didn't take exception to it. I'm just saying, they had to acknowledge that kind of attitude towards the fans in order to redeem it later on.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair. That makes sense. Yeah. It's not like it came off as necessarily hurtful in that instance, but
yes, because Tim Allen's character himself was speaking out of hurt.
Yes, definitely. That was actually one of the next things that I was going to bring up was just how subdued he is at times, because Tim Allen can be a very over the top comedian.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look at any of his movies, where he plays Santa Claus as an example. He's a quote unquote everyman, but it's usually over the top everyman. And that's not really the case with his portrayal with Jason Nesmith. I think he's very down to earth, and real in a way that I think I've said before, that in general the movie as a whole sort of feels that way to me. But he captures being Shatner. He is the Shat in this.
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree more. And when they show the opening scenes of like the original Galaxy Quest TV show, and when he does the moment where he leans over in the command chair and he's in the thinking pose, and you know right away, he's doing William Shatner. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right on the money, Ian, because I mean, I know a little bit of Tim Allen's work, and probably not as much as other people, but the things I've seen, I think this is the best thing he's ever done in his career.
Yeah.
Because he's really acting like he can act, like he's like some people, like some comedians, you put them on other mediums, they don't necessarily come through that well. Although you kind of see there's like a one trick pony, but I think I'm just guessing. I think this role really got to him because you can tell he really understood the essence of what he was supposed to be doing in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think it made it more than just a buffoonish, satirical approach, because like when he has to tell, is it Malthazar, the head alien?
Malthazar, yeah.
When he has to tell him that everything is actually fake.
Oh.
Like that's and the warlord is like, explain it to him as if he were a child. And it's actually poignant in a way, because you see how this guy like is aware of kind of, meaning the Tim Allen, the Jason Nesmith character, is kind of aware in a way of the own wreckage of his life, and how he's kind of like a fraud, and he's like an also ran, and the whole point is like now he has like this opportunity to kind of, both as an actor and as a person, kind of make something of himself. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a really, like, I remember the first time I saw this movie, I was like, wow, Tim Allen is really great in this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, there was the humor stuff. I knew he was going to be great at that, but there was also the other moments, like when he's in the bathroom.
Apparently that scene, and mind you, IMDb can't exactly be taken verbatim most of the time. But that scene of him in the bathroom overhearing fans happened to Shatner at one point. And that's where they apparently drew their inspiration. But I can in no way confirm that, because literally anybody can add anything to IMDb.
I've read it too. I don't know if it's apocryphal or not. But when he hears the fans ribbing on him, and he's in the stall, and then when he comes out and he's like kind of like callous, like throwing like sliding this autograph to the fans, and
well, and some of that scene in particular, I don't always take it as being down on the fans, because even the other in the movie's universe, the other cast members are even talking about how, well, that's not normally how he acts. He's always into it with the fans, always playing it up as if it's a real thing, and giving exaggerated explanation for things like you would want to get from an interaction with one of these actors. I think it's just that he didn't realize just how some people view him.
That's the thing what the movie does really well. And then in the next scene, when Rickman and Sigourney Weaver, and of course Alan Rickman never removes his headpiece of the whole movie, which is brilliant. But when they're talking to each other on the phone, like about what's wrong with Jason, and that scene is so important because it captures how long these people have known each other. Because their show went off the air like 18 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how they still have these ties, and how even though the Nesmith character is kind of obnoxious, they all actually do care about him, and even in a way kind of look to him as an example. So there's a lot going on in this movie, and I think that they really just hit the mark. And that's why I'm such a big fan of the writing, because this isn't that could have easily just been like a silly lampooning, and that would have been it. But I think there's more to it.
And you go through the whole movie until like you do end up at the end, he redeems all that by saving everybody from the bad guys who stow away and come along.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because it was that was kind of the like redemptive arc that had to be done in this movie in order to make it really work. And I appreciated the way they went about that, really. And the scene that you brought up with Mathazar, where he's telling him that it's all fake, that was the moment that, I mean, and that, as the documentary pointed out, that was one of the few moments that Steven Spielberg, because this was a DreamWorks production, was on set for that. He's standing there with the director, going, "Wow, Tim's really good in this movie," and to hear that from Steven frickin' Spielberg.
Right.
That's a lot. And it's my favorite piece of acting in the film, and you're right. This is one of the few movies Tim Allen has been in outside of a Toy Story movie, which is all voiceover, where I feel like Tim Allen is legitimately acting.
Yeah, no, I every time I watch it, I'm really drawn in by his performance. Like Alan Rickman and Sigourney Weaver, they're great actors, so you know they're going to be great.
Yeah.
And Tony Shalhoub, he's a great actor too. But every time, like, wow, he's so good in this movie. Like he really gets the essence of what I think they're trying to do with it. And it's a delight to watch.
Well, and a lot of that also, not only is his acting good in it, but I think his love of the science fiction genre. He poured his heart and soul into that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because he is a giant science fiction nerd. There was apparently a moment during the filming where he brought a bunch of alien memorabilia for Sigourney Weaver to sign. So I mean, he's very much in this sci-fi realm and has been a fan himself for a very long time. The other thing is that I really hope that somewhere in the lore of Galaxy Quest, the actor Alexander Dane has a book similar to Leonard Nimoy's "I Am Not Spock."
Yeah.
Because that would just work too well.
Speaking of Alan Rickman, the writing he had like basically every great line in the film.
Yeah,
he has that dry delivery, and he's very wry, and like we think of him as like Hans Gruber in Die Hard. I mean, he was in Sense and Sensibility. his breakthrough role was Valmont from Dangerous Liaisons on stage. Like, this guy is a major actor. Like, he's a great. Yeah. Like, there's a lot of actors, and there's like him and like a couple others that are way above that. And to see him deliver lines like "You never took the craft seriously" or things like that, I mean, and it makes the movie for me, because he's basically like riffing on himself. Essentially, like, what if Alan Rickman somehow got lost in like some kind of like rabbit hole and ended up on this science fiction show for his entire career, basically. And they so played that up so nicely, and the tension he's exhibiting at the Tim Allen character, like when when he saves, what's the name of the aliens again? I forgot. I'm sorry.
The Thermians.
Thermians. Thanks, Mert. When he saves the Thermians, and they all start praising Tim Allen's character for saving their lives, and he just throws up
yeah, he just shrugs, throws his arms up.
Yep. But like, again, right after that, when the Thermian who worshipped him dies, and it becomes real for him. Like, in that moment, he becomes his character, because and the other actor was wonderful, because as he dies, you can see how happy he is, because his hero gave him that moment. So he died thinking like this was all real, and the hammer and all that. And those are the moments where I think this movie transcends what some people think it is, and it becomes something more.
Yeah. It's also, unfortunately, one of the reasons why that the sequel they were going to be making never got off the ground, because they were planning it right around the time that Alan Rickman passed. And I honestly don't want to see a sequel at this point.
No.
I don't think they're going to do one without him. Correct? I mean,
they've skirted the idea once or twice afterwards, saying that they were considering it, but I don't think this works if you don't have everybody, and he's such a important part that I really don't want to see something Galaxy Quest without him.
Well, not only that, I agree, and because also one of the best parts of Galaxy Quest is the love/hate between him and Tim Allen's character.
Yeah,
and like the scene where they decide they're going to adapt one of their episodes, and they pretend to fight each other to get the guards into the air chamber, and that the movie's just sprinkled with great moments like that, where they're doing all, like, it's like, all right, so if Shatner and Nimoy actually were really caught in a situation like this, right, what would they try to do to get themselves out of it? And you can see them saying, all right, we're going to do what we did in Devil in the Dark, right, or something.
Yeah.
Which immediately brings me back to Futurama.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because that is essentially as close to Galaxy Quest as you will get with the original Star Trek characters.
That's true. I forgot about that. You're right.
Yeah. To me, all the right kind of Star Trek beats are here, and it's kind of what makes this film so charming. Is the fact that they managed to like get so much right, even like the red shirt with Sam Rockwell's character. I mean, like I don't even have a last name, and like, well, no, you do have a last name, right? Like, I'm not sure.
and he's a red shirt Riker Cross to me.
Yes, good point. Yep, very good point. And the way he's known as a method actor, so the way he pours himself into that role, and I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, it involves him, is when the aliens reveal their true visages for the first time when they're beamed onto the ship, and Rockwell has like a total breakdown when he sees like the octopus aliens, and he just collapses, and the look of sheer panic and terror on his face is so hilarious in that scene. But his like quote arc through the movie is so fun, because we know that character, like the person he's playing, and the lot in life of usually of sort of that type of also ran actor who you never really gets anywhere. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, he's like the masculine security chief when they relaunched the show. And his arc in the movie is one of my favorite aspects of the entire film. And you can see even back then, like this guy really has something, because he took that role and he really, like, most people didn't know who he was probably at that point, compared to people now. And he really made something out of that role and really made it fun. Like, I mean, come on, when you have to share screen time with Alan Rickman,
yeah,
living actors when he was alive, and you can hold your own, that's something to be said.
I'd like to point out that one of his earliest roles, the sixth role that he has listed on IMDb, he was head thug in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie back in 1990.
Oh my God!
And the other thing that I wanted to mention is, have any of you guys ever read Red Shirts by John Scalzi?
No.
I've heard it's great.
Okay, because bringing up the Red Shirt immediately made me think of that book, and just how much that book in some ways reminds me of Galaxy Quest, where Red Shirts is a book about a red shirt in a Star Trek world that realizes that he is a red shirt, and they essentially realize that they are a TV show and they are not the stars. And they have to try and save themselves before they're killed off to make the stars of the show look better.
And that's a great mention, because he basically in his own way has that realization in Galaxy Quest, because he keeps panicking. Okay, I'm going to die now because this is the moment where my character dies, essentially.
Exactly.
So have fun with that.
Well, and I like Tony Shalhoub at one point towards the end pulls him out of that and says, "What if you're the plucky comic relief? What if you're supposed to be here?"
And I mean, turns out he was.
Yeah. I like when they're on the rock planet and they're talking about what to do, what plan to use, and Jason Nesmith says, "Well, let's use it from this episode," and he's like, "Wait, what episode? Wait, that's the episode I die in."
Yeah, I'm glad I don't have to live the life of a red shirt.
Yeah.
I would constantly be worrying that there's a rock monster behind me, ready to end it all.
I even liked it when they landed on that planet and they're like, or a guy says, "Is there air? You don't know?" And he goes, "Seems okay." I watched the movie with a buddy of Adam and I, Ben, who's a Trekkie, and I remember he's like, "Is that guy supposed to be stoned?" Tony Shalhoub's character, and I was like, I don't know, maybe, but that is kind of how he was acting. Because later, he's doing a communications like, "Hey guys, they wanted me to tell you not to save."
Yeah,
in a very laid back kind of way.
Yeah.
Shalhoub's character, I mean, yes, considering the fact that it is Fred Kwan, which yet again is probably the worst part of all of this, even if it is, building upon that wonderful stereotype of shows at the time. I love Tony Shalhoub as an actor, and he brings so much dry humor to this entire movie. And that's what works so great about it.
I have a question. I know I said earlier they could never do that, but trying to rethink things, and I know people misinterpreted Tropic Thunder. Do you think that was supposed to be satire as opposed to, hey, let's get Tony Shalhoub, we'll just give him this character? Like in hindsight, because of the unfortunate reality, not, eliminate anything, that type of stuff occurred, at some point in our media history where they would cast people for roles that should not have gone to them necessarily based on the characters. So is this kind of, we understand that this is just supposed to be a satire of a reflection of those past things. We're not ourselves doing that also.
Yeah.
I think if it were meant to be satire, they probably would have shouted it out a little louder in the script. You see what I'm saying? They would have made reference to, "Are you even really Asian?" Something like that. But
yeah, I guess that's a good point.
Well, and some of what I would love to know more of, and we got a good bit of it in the documentary, was the studio wanted it to be a little bit more general audience friendly. So there were things that changed throughout the whole course of the movie till you got this end product, which, from what I understood it, maybe Ian and Chris would think differently, but it seems like this end result is much different than what we started out with.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, for one thing, the movie was originally going to be directed by Harold Ramis.
Which I did not know.
I did not know that either. And I think that with a Ghostbusters feel to this movie would have been very different. Probably a lot more slapstick than what we got, and certainly a different type of humor than what we got. I'm not necessarily saying that would have been a bad thing. It just would have been a very different movie.
No. I think it still would have been good.
Oh, yeah. But the other thing that, that this was going to be a PG-13 movie, possibly even verging on R, and, they made the conscious decision to not do that, which seemed like it was mostly the studio wanting another G-rated hit on their hands, which this movie was not going to be.
And not only for themselves, but also to rival other studios that were producing more family-friendly stuff.
Yes, yeah. But even just not having any curses in it, I think really, in this particular instance, worked to its advantage.
I do too.
Because you can watch this with kids and watch it with adults, and it's the sort of humor that I feel like translates to both, kind of along the lines of things like Animaniacs, where, higher humor will be caught by the adults, but lower humor will be caught by the kids.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I also wonder, I know myself being a huge Star Trek fan, I wonder if I enjoyed it more because of that. I'm not saying people can't enjoy it that aren't Star Trek fans, but just knowing myself, I wondered if I enjoyed it just that much more because of my history with Star Trek all my entire life.
It's certainly possible. I mean, that is one of the main audiences of this movie. are people who knew the original series, who knew Next Generation, and were looking for something along those lines, and I think it connects on a lot of those levels.
Yeah.
And really, I think the aliens are one of my favorite parts of this entire film. Just for the way that they're portrayed and their complete naivete. It could have been played for laughs, and it could have been played for. Hell, you could have even had them been more serious, and it wouldn't have quite worked nearly as well as the way it did. The way that they made them work.
What was is it Balthazar? He's the
leader.
So he actually, I know more from Just Shoot Me, but I guess he also played Veronica Mars's father.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And and I forget the opponent, the antagonist in the movie. Saris.
Robin Sachs is his name.
Is he still alive?
No, he is not. Unfortunately, he died back in 2013.
Okay, that explains, because I was wondering, why isn't he in the documentary at all? I'm just afraid that he might have passed away. So
yeah, looks like in his last couple of years, he was in an episode of Torchwood back in 2011, and mainly just had voice work for a few years after that. He did actually play Sal Karath in Star Wars: Knights of the Old Republic, the video game. So he did have some random roles here and there past a year like 2004, but not much after that.
He actually, that actor, also played in Buffy, who was a former friend of Giles. And now that character's name eludes me as well, but he's the one that was the Mystic Arts that put the tattoo in season 2 of Buffy.
Oh, okay.
So that the team that they conjured would go after her instead of him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, and that was one of the things, until I saw the credits, I was like, wait a minute, that's the same guy? That's completely different.
Well, I thought he was fantastic for what they wanted him to do in this movie. He was, again, the aliens on either side were so over the top, and I just so enjoyed the whole effect of that.
Yeah, he has some range. He really does.
Yeah.
And I had kind of, because I hadn't watched this movie in years, and then I went ahead and watched it again. I'd kind of forgotten that this was Veronica. That this is the same guy who played Veronica's dad, because in that he's kind of like a wisecracking older father figure more than anything else. And in this, it's almost slapstick.
Yeah.
But it's executed so beautifully, and he's the one where they came up with the cadence for the voices. That was completely him. I'm going to be slipping into that voice for the next 5 days. I have a feeling.
Please don't be encouraged.
The fact that he did that in his audition, they loved it so much they decided to adapt it into the movie.
Yeah, and that's what floored me about it. It's like, wow, he came up on this on a whim, like while leaving his audition. He was like,
yeah, he was on his way out.
Yeah, and he was just like, well, I think I have this in me, and immediately like, okay, great, you're hired. And they basically built the entire alien race from there.
Wow. It's a great story.
It's stuff like that just makes me so glad that Hollywood is the way it is, because so many things you never expect something to take off, and then before you know it, it's the driving force of a TV show or a movie.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. What'd you guys think of the special effects?
They were a lot better than I thought they'd be for something like this. I thought they were very well done.
It made me smile to see how many practical effects were still being used in 1999.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You could tell that it's a peer of Men in Black, though. It's a product of the same generation of sci-fi.
Yeah.
It's just a good blend of endearingly cheesy period practical effects and endearingly cheesy period CGI.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
I especially liked the pig lizard thing.
Oh, that was great. Yeah. Funny enough, Murd, one of the co-writers of the screenplay for this movie co-wrote Men in Black 2.
All right, then. Which probably would have been reaching theaters at about the same time, I think?
No, Men in Black 2 was 2002, actually. So it was a couple of years after the fact, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But he also then went on to write the 2004 version of a series of unfortunate events. So,
okay.
Two not-so-great movies. But A Series of Unfortunate Events was okay. It just wasn't that great. Men in Black 2 is easily the weakest of the franchise, in my opinion. Not his best follow-up.
I think Murd is a valid point that like the effects I think are. I mean, I love them, but they're definitely of their time. They do have that feel of that time period of movies, like the Rock Monster, for example. But it in a way, though, it didn't bother me because they were kind of lovingly lampooning the kind of effects you would see in Star Trek.
Right.
And, I mean, granted, then they were using like styrofoam and plywood and God knows what else back in the 60s. But it had that even though they were using late 90s effects, it's still, for me, it's still a bit of that sort of cheesy feel to it, which, again, I just ate up and really enjoyed. And, of course, he had to have his shirt come off, which in the Lampoon Shatner, that has to happen.
Oh, man. And I mean, mind you, even today, I mean, there's some special effects where, like, you're watching Black Panther run and you're like, what the hell? He looks like rubber.
Yeah.
There was a few moments of Black Panther where it was obvious that they may have had a little bit of trouble with some of the effects.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in this mood now where I'd like to see small hints of shared universes. Like I keep thinking to replace Paul Walker's character in Fast and the Furious, they should bring in Johnny Utah from Point Break. In the same token, that would have been nice that if you would have saw like Will Smith or indication that the Men in Black existed since the aliens are out there.
Yeah,
just kind of a hint that way, or even conversely in the Men in Black movie. In the sequel, kind of hint that one of those one of those aliens is actually on Earth.
Right.
As well, just kind of like, oh, okay, so these could all be intertwined.
That would be pretty awesome.
I always like those kind of Easter eggs.
There were only a few instances in this movie where I felt like it was CGI fatigue. The small aliens, the how cute aliens,
yeah,
they don't age so well. It definitely looked like 1999 era CGI, a lot more than a lot of the other stuff. But also, I understand why they use them because it's kind of hard to get that many miniatures and make them work.
That's true.
Yeah, the Rock Monster I like though. Mind you, that's a lot easier to do, and I think they were definitely working with partially practical, partially CGI with that Rock Monster. That one at least felt a little bit more real to me. It had a lot less of the like green screen on top of actual stage aesthetic to it. the other thing that I wanted to mention, speaking of the sets, having this set where it was mostly in like the deserts of Utah, I felt like that really worked for me. For any of the outside scenes that they were doing, of course. It's one of those things where it evokes the mountains in California that Star Trek always used, while at the same time also having its own unique look. And I think that I dug that.
Yeah, I did too. I would at first, years ago, I was wondering if they were filmed in the same places, but then learning where everything was. No, I agree. I think it gave it its own little tone with still paying some homage to what they would do in Star Trek.
Definitely. Yeah. I'm kind of surprised they didn't actually have more of like the Star Trek writers involved with this. Just considering how close they got. Like, I almost feel like, the screenplay writer of this, like David Howard, at least from what I know, didn't work on, Next Generation or anything like that. I mean, sure, he's a big fan, and I think he actually wrote something called Trek the Movie, which I don't think has anything to do with Star Trek, even though it's called Trek the Movie. In fact, yeah, it actually looks like it's like a freaking Western, so I take it back. But either way, it felt genuine in that way. All right, and unfortunately, Matt's got to go put the kids to bed right now. So Matt, you got any quick final thoughts you want to throw out there, just so the listeners can have your final take?
I found it an enjoyable movie. It's something I wouldn't say it Shawshanks me when it's on TV, but it's one of those that when I'm flipping around, I might tune in for a couple scenes that I do find enjoyable. Again, I would not say it's the best Star Trek movie that I've seen, or probably within the top 5 of all the ones that I've seen. But it's some good laughs. I think it's might be Tim Allen's best movie that I saw that I laughed at the most. But no, it's good. It's entertaining. And I think if you're a Trekkie, you probably would like this even more, knowing a lot more of the references that I just don't know by not being a Trekkie. So other than that, you guys stay safe, stay healthy, and catch you the next time.
All right. Sounds good, Matt. Take care.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Say hi to Meg for us.
Will do. Take it easy.
Meanwhile, we will soldier on, never give up, never surrender.
Exactly. So Adam, as someone who's only lukewarm on it, I'm curious as to what some of your favorite parts of the movie were.
Well, I mentioned the bit with Sigourney Weaver tearing her hair out over the crushers or pounders in the bowels of the ship. I like most of the bits with Tony Shalhoub's character in there. I like just how unflappably laid back he was most of the time. It kind of makes me want to know more about his background, like how he got quite so mellow and how many different chemicals it took to get him into that state of mind. Yes, I also liked his little interspecies love affair with the lovely Laliana. Yeah. I mentioned the pig lizard was a quality creature design. Probably my least favorite part of the movie, actually, was when they tried to beam him up and turned him inside out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Just another sign of the contemporaneity of Men in the Black is how this movie, just that once, really leaned on gross-out humor and the splattering of goo all over everything.
Also, probably the least effective of the practical effects.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of gross too. Yeah.
And I enjoyed Rickman's character, Alexander Tate, I think his name was.
Dane.
Dane, Alexander Dane.
Yeah.
It's he and Tim Allen's character were the two that I thought were probably the best developed. The rest of the cast, I kind of felt like I wanted to know more about who they were, what they'd been doing in the nearly 30 years between Galaxy Quest and the state they were in now. But yeah, you didn't ask me to criticize, though. You're asking me for parts that I did like, and the part Matt mentioned about the rolling and whether or not it helped. That was a standout for me also. But but for most of the, there were some funny bits along the way, but for the most part, they were kind of weak chuckles. There weren't enough belly laughs, not enough good. What I wanted for this film was for it to be more affectionate satire and less mediocre fantasy space adventure, and instead it was the other way around. More of the thing I wanted less of.
Honestly, it really does make me wonder that if we had gotten "quote unquote" the original version of this movie,
the Harold Ramis directed version,
if that would have been more up your alley.
Yep, it's you're definitely right, Ian, that it would have been a very different film, and I too am curious as to whether I would have liked that a little bit more. What Ramis's approach to it would have been.
Yeah, it's too bad that unlike a certain other movie that is now going to be seeing the light of day that was 3/4 filmed and then they went in and changed it.
Yeah.
If only there was 3/4 of a Harold Ramis cut sitting around somewhere, then we'd be able to see the what if here. But that happened before filming, not after.
Right.
Right, you're going to have to illuminate me here, Ian. To what 3/4 completed film are you alluding here?
They announced today that the Zack Snyder Justice League cut is going to be released on HBO Max.
That thing, all right. Yeah, so that random character in Harley Quinn the animated series should be dancing around in his underwear right now.
Yes, exactly. I actually somehow hope they animate that in before the second season is over with, but that's I don't know if they're going to be able to pull that off. Yeah, but no, it's goes in there in the the many what ifs of Hollywood. What movies could have been and in some opinions should have been. I mean, we almost had a James Cameron Spider-Man back in the day, and that didn't wind up happening.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. There was a massive treatment that Cameron produced for that, but just never got it past that stage.
Yep. It was one of the reasons why in the Spider-Man animated series they weren't allowed to use certain characters because they were, I think both Electro and Sandman were earmarked to be used in the James Cameron film, and that's why the Spider-Man animated series were not able to use those characters until long into their run.
Oh, wow.
Yep. That's why they chose to do Hydro Man instead of Sandman for a while. The joys of movie trivia. Yeah. There were a few characters in this, too, that were, bit characters that then wound up having, major careers of their own.
Oh, yeah. Rainn Wilson.
Yeah. I completely forgot about the fact that Rainn Wilson was in this and that his role would have been bigger if not for a failed NBC pilot.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. One of the again idiosyncrasies of filming is you never quite know when someone's going to be available or not available, and Rainn Wilson was only really available for 3 scenes in this, so go figure. But he had The Office ahead of him, and he became a much bigger guy after that.
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that little Lieutenant Laredo, the kid in the 1982 scenes, was played by Corbin Bleu, who would go on to be a Disney Channel celebrity. I think he was in the High School Musical movies.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I didn't know that.
Yep. And he was also in Mystery Men.
Corbin Bleu was?
Yeah. I didn't know that either until I literally just clicked on his IMDb page. Apparently, he played a character called Butch in Mystery Men. I don't think it was a very big character, but he was in it.
I wonder if he was one of the Shoveler's kids.
Oh, you know what? I think you might be right.
Maybe.
Yeah. Good catch, Murray.
Yeah, now that you mentioned it, Mystery Men was the same year as Galaxy Quest. They were both 99.
Yep. And also, I appreciate near the end the appearance of the Kids in the Hall's one and only Kevin McDonald as the announcer at the very end.
Wait, who did he play?
Kevin McDonald plays the announcer at the very end of the movie when they're crash landing into the convention.
Well, I love that scene because amazingly nobody's killed when this massive ship breaks.
Right.
It's fantastic.
I mean, Hall H is pretty big, so.
Ian, though, I got to tell you because you mentioned this at the beginning. Watching this movie, especially now, I'm like, I miss conventions too.
Yeah.
How many times did I? And Shane and I have talked about this where I would go to. They used to do a lot of Star Wars or Star Trek conventions years back. And I would go to some of those, and they so captured the feel of that. Like whatever the production people really did their homework when they set all that up, and the way people looked and the stalls and the whole thing, and
creating product for all of that.
Yep. Oh yeah. The sets are the whole production design is just right on the money.
Oh yeah,
it's wonderful.
Yep, and they really just get it right, and that's what I appreciated so much about it. And really, now that I think about it, maybe the only thing that I would want to see is possibly like an animated series with these characters. Like if we could get something along those lines, and get someone to do their best Alan Rickman as to fill the role, maybe I'd be down for that. But that's kind of the only Galaxy Quest thing that I can see myself wanting after this, because this is just too perfect of a piece.
I would certainly be happy to give an animated series a try. Of course.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hear that, Amazon? You might still have that contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure Jeff Bezos is one of our listeners, but
oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, well, he has so much time on his hand these days. You never know. All right. Anything else? Anybody else wanted to bring up?
I just one of the other things I wanted to say was the background actors. One of them, Sam Lloyd, who was in some West Wing episodes. He was also in Scrubs a lot as a secondary character. I thought it was great to see him in there.
He just passed away. He just passed away like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yep. One of the other background actors, Matt Winston, he actually played a Starfleet officer from the future in Enterprise a few times. So I like, and I'm sure none of this is necessarily intentional, but I like when those happy accidents happen, that I can pull those people together from different sci-fi genres.
Well, one thing that is intentional and has been brought up at least once or twice is that J.J. Abrams, for his first Star Trek movie, the crash landing that Kirk and Spock do in that first movie is essentially a nod to Galaxy Quest.
Okay.
Right. And because they were such big fans of it that they had to work that in one way or the other. So they decided to go ahead and throw that one in as their tribute. So that's pretty awesome.
Cool. Yeah. Well, and I like the ship, the Protectorate. Its call sign or call letters are NTE, not the Enterprise. They said on the documentary. That was kind of neat. I never put that together.
I totally missed them saying that. So I'm glad, I'm glad you brought that up.
It was something about getting around so that it wouldn't get looked at as the Enterprise, so that they couldn't make it or couldn't use it. Mm-hmm. It was like, well, look, it's not the Enterprise. That's what it's called, NTE, not the Enterprise. It was something like that. It was really neat.
And did anybody else notice the changes in widescreen format throughout the film?
Yes. Yep.
When they shoot him, when they're going to shoot him off back to Earth, absolutely. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's a nice theater touch that I really, really appreciate when films do that to try to, increase the scope of a scene.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think of in the documentary? Because this is a very interesting point where they were considering not having him in the limo and to make you think it might have been a dream, like kind of leave it open or ambiguous as to whether or not this actually happened. And you have to show him in the limo. What did you think?
I would have rather had him in the limo as it is. I would not have liked it to have been, well, was it a dream? I didn't need it to be the Wizard of Oz.
Although it would have been fun for them to still do that screen shift, and that would have made it even more Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things that even the happy accidents wound up working out for it in the end, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely. Merge, you got anything else you wanted to bring up?
Well, if I did, it would be another criticism. So I don't want to create too great a drag on your enthusiasm.
Oh, no, please, feel free. I mean, there's.
Well, all right then. If I have your approval, the ending, and I'm not picking on the Galaxy Quest specifically for this, because this is something I've noticed in a lot of film comedies. They tend to have difficulty knowing exactly when to stop. It's like they come up with 2 or 3 different possible endings and then find a way to make all of them one after another. And then that I noticed that in this movie as well. It's like there are several different stopping places they could have gone with, and they just kept tacking on, and we culminating in the crash of the Protector into Hall H or whatever it is, and then the convention center, which is an interesting way to end it. But then we had to sit there through all the different actors emerging through the smoke and the rubble and taking their bows, and it was just kind of cheesy and protracted. And I did like the little tag at the end where we see the Galaxy Quest: The Next Generation with all the actors in their newly revised roles. That was kind of fun. But for my money, I think I would have been most pleased with the ending if they could have just cut it off when they were flying into the black hole and just fade to black there. But all the stuff that they did with the Omega-13 bit in particular, when they first were shown the actual Omega-13 that the Thermians had created, and as soon as they set that up, I thought to myself, oh my God, I know they're going to pay that off later, but I kind of hope they don't pay that off, because they don't need to pay that off. Just what is this outer space techno MacGuffin thing going to do? And it turns out it turns time back 13 seconds. So I knew even the first time I watched this that towards the end there'd be some tragic happening that Tim Allen would have to use the Omega-13 to undo. And sure enough, they just shoehorned it in there at the end. They really could have done without it. It felt superfluous. It was one of several little bits of business that they stuck on at the end that they didn't really need to. I thought the ending could have been sanded down a little bit.
Yeah,
but the actual ending, the last thing you see before they roll the credits, that was pretty cool, I must admit.
Yeah, well, the Omega-13 was definitely the Chekhov's gun, or if you want to go very Star Trek, the Chekhov's nuclear vessel of the piece.
Yeah, that's for sure.
In reference to Chekhov's gun elsewhere, what is Chekhov's gun?
So Chekhov's gun is actually it's a playwright term where if you introduce a gun in the first act, it has to go off in the third.
Okay, so it's a setup and payoff thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'll add that to my vocabulary immediately.
Well, there you go.
Thank you, Ian.
You're quite welcome.
Ian, is that meaning Chekhov as in the Russian author?
Yes, indeed.
That's what I thought. Because I knew you didn't mean Chekhov the Star Trek character, so I wanted to...
Actually, until this moment, I thought that's what it referred to.
I'll tell you, for years and years and years and years, I thought otherwise until I finally, researched it a little bit and found out that that's not what they were referring to. So go figure.
Well, it's just the Star Trek context,
Yeah, just too coincidental.
Wasn't sure. Ian, you just educated us on something fantastic.
Well, very much. I see the more you know star going over my head right now. Shane, you wanted to add something?
No, I'm good.
All right, cool. All right, I guess we might as well just go ahead and give our fricking swears, and we can wrap this baby up. Shane, how many do you give it?
I'd give it a 4.
Okay. I'm giving it a 4.5. I think it's pretty damn near perfect in my book. Chris?
I'm giving it a 5.
Right on. And Murd?
Predictably a 3.
Hey.
Don't dislike it at all. It's just I see ways it could have been a lot better for my money.
You're that cartoon of the dog sipping the coffee in the room on fire. This is fine.
Yes, I remember that dog.
We're all that dog right now. Anyway,
see, I was thinking it in my head, but I wasn't going to say it.
Yep, somebody had to. All right. Well, I'm glad that we threw another retro movie review out there, and I hope you all sat down and enjoyed it. And it's available for on demand on many services, and for rental for like $3. So if you haven't watched it yet, or you don't use my voodoo trick, just go ahead and check it out and let us know what you thought.
Yeah.
All right. Let me find my phone and connect it back in, and we can go ahead and end this sucker up. Oh, you know what? Actually, before we do, I'll just throw out some quick show stuff. I mentioned at the beginning of the CGS Presents episode, and I mentioned it on the Comic Geek Speak supergroup as well, that Comic Geek Speak is now officially available on Spotify. So anybody who has a connected device, like I I won't say the names of them because it'll set them off, but a Amazon device or a Google device, you could just go ahead and, use the wake word and say play Comic Geek Speak, and it'll go ahead and play the most recent episode as long as you have it set to Spotify. So that's pretty damn cool. And yet another way to listen to back episodes of the show is everything from now until like 2016 are available in the Spotify app for streaming. Everybody who wants to go check us out that way, you got yet another way to listen to Comic Geek Speak.
Oh, that's cool.
We should also mention once again that we really appreciate people who have been donating to the show. There's been several of those over the past weeks, and it really helps us, and it's much appreciated.
Definitely. Yep. And anybody who has not listened to the syndicated episode that went up earlier this week, it's episode 202, even though I said episode 201 at the beginning of the episode and realized after I released it, whoopsie. But it's episode 202 of Comic Timing, and we had longtime friend of Comic Geek Speak, Mr. Jamal Igo, on that episode to discuss more the state of the comic book industry and in the current world and where it might be heading and distribution and digital and a whole bunch of other great things. And Jamal always knows what he's talking about, and we're very happy to have him on that episode. All right, Shane, you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, let's do this.
Visit us at comicgeekspeak.com to send us an email. The address is comicgeekspeak@gmail.com. To leave a voicemail, the number is 267-702-6642. Stop by thecomicforums.vanillacommunity.com and let us know what your thoughts are on Galaxy Quest. Also, check out the Facebook Comic Geek Speak supergroup and do the same there. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. As mentioned before, thank you to everyone who contributes to the episode. It is truly appreciated, and it does help us out. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And as always, we are uniting the world's mightiest heroes, one listener at a time.
You got it on Wednesday, and you was psyched about it, going to the volume up. These guys will talk about it, everything the geeks love. From cakes to laser beams, opinions like the seasons on everything you read in comics, movies, games, toys, artists, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek Speak, Comic Geek. Uniting the world's mightiest heroes. This is Comic Geek Speak.
The episode is over.